Poker has never been just a game of cards. It's a battlefield of ego, genius, and chaos. From fearless prodigies to fallen legends and outright scandals, these are the players who changed the game and left the poker world arguing ever since. This is poker's most controversial players, and it all begins with a kid who walked into the toughest games on Earth and made the pros question everything they thought they knew about poker. This is the story of Tom Dwan.
I've just come out of the Park Royal Centre for Mental Health after speaking with Tom Dwan. He's clearly under the supervision of the NHS here.
He was the young online phenom named Tom Dwan who went as Durr. To my story with him, when I started to notice there was maybe something a little off or different. Now I'm expecting, what is this? FBI, something?
He wasn't just disliked, he was downright loathed. His name could spark an argument in any poker room. But in April 2025, his long-running feud with the poker world took a darker twist. Locked up, cut off from his phone, and claiming he was being silenced, he suddenly lit up social media with posts that left fans stunned. Was this the breakdown of a controversial star, or a calculated move? This is the inside story of how one of poker's most hated figures went to war with the system and why the WSOP wanted him quiet. Tom Dwan's story starts on July 30th, 1986, in Edison, New Jersey. Even as a kid, he was drawn to anything that tested his brain. Logic puzzles, strategy games, anything that required thinking 3 moves ahead. But it wasn't until his teenage years that he stumbled onto the game that would define his life: poker. On his 17th birthday, with just a $50 gift from his dad, Dwan opened an account on an online poker site. He picked the screen name Durr, a cheeky little jab meant to make opponents underestimate him. The joke didn't last long. Within a few short years, he'd flipped that $50 into millions, pulling off one of the fastest and most fearless rises in online poker history. His main battlefield was Full Tilt Poker, the mecca of high-stakes online games in the mid-2000s. Here, Tom went toe-to-toe with the best in the world, and often beat them. His style was relentless. Insane bluffs, impossible hero calls, and constant pressure that forced even seasoned pros into mistakes. Some outsiders called it reckless. The real sharks knew better. They saw a player who could calculate complex scenarios in seconds, blending cold game theory with pure gut instinct. By his early 20s, Durr wasn't just a username, it was a brand. Dwan had become the most feared and exciting player in the online arena, regularly battling in nosebleed stakes games with blinds of $200 to $400, $500 to $1,000, and sometimes even higher. Where most would tighten up, Dwan thrived in chaos. His legendary duels with names like Phil Ivey, Patrick Antonius, Ilari Ziegmund, Sahamis, and Victor Isildur I, Bloom, defined an era of online poker that felt wild, unregulated, and limitless. His sessions with Antonius were especially famous. Marathon battles where millions swung back and forth in hours, each move dripping with tension. Fans loved him for the same reason opponents feared him. He could turn trash hands into gold, bluff his way out of disaster, or extract razor-thin value where no one else would dare. This was the golden age of online poker, and Dwan wasn't just part of it, he was the headline act. Then came April 15th, 2011, Black Friday. The U.S. Department of Justice shut down Full Tilt Poker and other major sites, revealing that Full Tilt had been using player funds to pay owners and cover debts. Dwan wasn't part of management, but his face was everywhere, making him one of the brand's most recognizable figures. He spoke out for the players who were owed money, distancing himself from the scandal, but the damage was done. It marked the end of online poker's wildest chapter and the end of Dwan's reign as its undisputed king. Years later, in 2017, Dwan reminded everyone he was still a force. He reappeared at the Macau Billionaires Poker Spring Challenge, jumping into the Super High Roller event. He finished second to Mikita Badzikuski, pocketing $275,000, his first live tournament cash in over 3 years. But tournaments were never his true playground. His heart and his edge were in high-stakes cash games. Then came May 2023, when Dwan made history all over again. Going up against Wesley Fay, a bold, trash-talking cryptocurrency millionaire, he made a jaw-dropping call to take down a $3.1 million pot the biggest ever caught on TV or live stream. Fast forward to 2024, and he finally cracked a personal milestone that had been haunting him for over a decade: a World Series of Poker main event cash. It was his first since 2011. Dwan battled his way deep into the tournament, even stacking over 1 million chips before bowing out on day 4. No trophy this time. But it was proof that Tom Dwan, calculating, fearless, and relentless, is still one of the most dangerous players in the game. But by 2025, his name was making headlines for reasons nobody saw coming. In April 2025, the poker world wasn't just watching the tables, they were watching Dwan's social media like it was the final hand of the World Series. Out of nowhere, the legendary high-stakes player lit up X, the platform once known as Twitter, with a flood of alarming posts that had fans, friends, and even fellow pros worried sick. It all started on Tuesday, April 29th. Dwan announced he was at the Park Royal Centre for Mental Health in West London, claiming he was battling extreme paranoia and genuinely feared for his life. His tweets painted a disturbing picture, saying he was scared, that people were trying to kill him or damage his brain, and that doctors and nurses were forcing medication he didn't need. He even tagged heavyweight political figures like Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, pleading for help. The posts hinted at something that happened before he ended up in the facility, an incident on a plane where he claimed he was restrained. Dwan claimed that a supposed flight attendant offered to charge his phone, but instead used the chance to erase his browser history, a move he saw as clear evidence of a planned setup. From there, his accusations got even darker, alleging that the Metropolitan Police broke one of his ribs, possibly punctured a lung, and left him with a fractured hand, all without giving him an X-ray. He described the medical staff as weirdos, involved in an investigation, not real healthcare workers. Over and over, he brought up U.S. Operational Command and claimed he was under attack by a shady intelligence agency. He said his water was being drugged, begged for NHS supervisors to act as bodyguards, and pleaded for friends to help before he suffered a heart attack. His messages were frantic, desperate, and deeply unsettling, full of warnings that his phone was being tampered with and that people were trying to kill his brain. The poker community exploded with speculation. Some feared he was being mistreated, others thought he might be in the grips of acute psychosis or a manic episode with paranoid delusions. Whatever it was, this wasn't some PR stunt. Reports confirmed Dwan was indeed admitted to the Park Royal Centre for Mental Health, and from that moment on, the situation only grew stranger. Will Shillabier, a UK-based reporter for PokerNews.com, managed to get inside the Park Royal Hospital and see Tom Dwan in person. He spent about 15 to 20 minutes with him, enough time to size up the situation. From Shillabier's perspective, Dwan wasn't in any immediate danger. He looked physically fine, was under the supervision of the NHS in Middlesex, and seemed to be in the right place to start getting better. Still, not everyone watching felt reassured. Even with Shillabier's calm report, Dwan's social media posts kept setting off alarm bells. Moments after Shillabier left, Dwan hopped back online, asking the Poker News reporter to return with a bottle of non-drugged water, hardly the kind of follow-up that suggested peace of mind. Within the poker community, concern was running deep. Veteran pro Jaime Staples voiced what many were quietly thinking. This looked like psychosis, and the best thing for Dwan was to trust the medical staff. Former European Poker Tour champion Kevin McPhee reminded everyone that only Dwan could truly describe how he felt, but Staples stood by his belief in the doctors, comparing them to ER teams, there to stabilize, not to solve everything at once. Staples shared that his opinion came from personal experience, having fought through his own mental health struggles. For him, the signs were unmistakable, even if they could be misread by those unfamiliar with such battles. Through it all, the poker world didn't get lost in the messy details. Dwan was more than just a player. He was a legend, and that meant the focus was on support, not judgment. His close circle stayed mostly silent in public, but some of the old-school grinders from his full-tilt glory days quietly checked in behind the scenes. One veteran high-stakes player, speaking anonymously to SpadePoker.tv, revealed that figures like Rob Yong had reached out with offers of help and encouragement. Then, signs of a turnaround started to show. Less than 3 hours after his tense post, Dwan tweeted an apology for the rant, admitting he'd just been stressed and saying he was feeling a bit better. It was vague, sure, but it was also the first real hint that the storm might be passing. Support came flooding in, with one of the most heartfelt messages from Beriuzzi, who reminded Dwan how many people he'd inspired and how ready the community was to stand behind him, no matter what. A few weeks after the chaos first erupted, Dwan resurfaced looking far more composed. He announced he was heading back to the United States, and this time, he came out swinging. He said he planned to sue both the UK police and London's Park Royal Hospital over what he described as a nightmare experience. According to Dwan, his time at Park Royal was nothing short of being held prisoner. He claimed he'd been drugged without consent, denied proper medical care, and stripped of basic rights like calling a lawyer or informing his family. He said staff even forced him to post that April 30th tweet where he told fans he was feeling a bit better and a bit stressed, then kept his phone for over 2 weeks instead of the promised few minutes. On top of that, he accused UK police of roughing him up before his hospital stay, breaking ribs, fracturing his hand, and possibly puncturing a lung. Dwan said he had voluntarily checked into Park Royal for what he thought would be a short 2-week stay, but the reality was different. He claimed he was cut off from the outside world and forced into treatment. His anger didn't just stop at the hospital or police. He also threatened to sue Poker News for reporting that he was in good physical condition while there. Under UK law, specifically the Mental Health Act of 1983, updated in 2007, authorities can detain someone if they believe a mental health disorder makes them a danger to themselves or others. Section 2 allows up to 28 days for assessment and treatment, while Section 3 permits up to 6 months for more serious cases. Treatment can be given without consent, but there are rules. Detainees still have rights, including legal representation and the ability to appeal. If Park Royal followed all those rules, Dwan's legal fight would be tough, but he insists they didn't, saying they ignored his rights and took away his phone after he posted a picture of an NHS staffer to his 200,000 plus followers. The real reason for his detention is still a mystery. Early on, Dwan fired off some paranoid-sounding tweets, claiming someone dressed as a flight attendant had messed with his phone, wiped his browser history, and was trying to frame him. Later, fellow poker pro Daniel Negreanu revealed on the Mania podcast that Dwan had been acting oddly even before his London trip. Negreanu didn't drop any names, but said Dwan was flying in to meet someone and was already behaving strangely at the airport. Negreanu also shared a throwback from Las Vegas that proved Dwan's quirks were nothing new. Years ago, Dwan pulled him aside for an urgent talk, but only after insisting Negreanu remove his phone battery so no one could record them. And after all that drama, there was nothing urgent at all. Dwan just wanted to chat. Negreanu said he had a bit of a delusion of grandeur, convinced he could personally broker peace with people like Putin or Kim Jong-un, and actually believing it. But that was only the surface. His real story was still to come. On May 30th, 2025, after more than a month of silence and speculation, Dwan finally spoke out, sharing his side of the story for the first time in a long, candid chat with Argentinian crypto streamer and software engineer Abril Zucchi. This wasn't just a quick update. Dwan opened up in detail about his stay at the Park Royal Center for Mental Health, how it all started, and what might have triggered what doctors later described as an acute psychotic episode. For a man once feared across the online poker world, it was a rare and raw glimpse behind the curtain. According to Dwan, it all began on a flight. Something happened mid-air that set everything in motion, ending with him being placed in psychiatric care just outside London. Looking back, he admitted that at some point, he wasn't processing reality correctly. Doctors told him it was an acute psychotic episode, but the cause was unclear. It could have been an underlying psychiatric condition or the result of some kind of substance. Dwan swore he hadn't taken anything willingly, suggesting that if substances were involved, they were given to him without his knowledge. Still, neither explanation felt right to him, and even now, he's still trying to make sense of it. Then came his biggest point of contention, the visit from Poker News managing editor Will Chilibier. While confined, Dwan said the hospital staff brought Chilibier into his room without his permission. At first, he thought Chilibier was a doctor, but minutes later realized he was actually a journalist. He felt blindsided, describing the interaction as manipulative and inappropriate. He later hinted online that he might consider legal action unless a proper apology was made. This whole episode raises bigger questions about how mental health crises involving public figures should be handled, especially when privacy, consent, and the media collide. While much about what happened remains unresolved, one thing is certain. This changed Dwan, the once smiling, unshakably confident poker phenom, has been more withdrawn, more unpredictable, and different since returning to the Macau scene. And if history is any guide, this probably won't be the last time he speaks out about it. Where Dwan thrived on fearless chaos, the next player built his empire on silence and precision. The man who never blinked, never tilted, and turned mystery into dominance. Meet the one they call Phil Ivey.
In a game built on bluffing and misdirection, one man rose to the top without saying a word.
Maybe the WPT is to start beheading people that cheat.
I mean, obviously it's unacceptable, right, to cheat somebody. Right, it's like, that's unacceptable.
Imagine sitting across from someone who never flinched, never blinked, someone who seemed to read your thoughts without giving up a single clue of his own. That's what opponents saw when this stone-faced prodigy took his seat. No trash talk, no theatrics, just one cold, unreadable expression. And with that alone, he carved out one of the most intimidating legacies the poker world has ever seen. Phil Ivey's journey begins in Riverside, California, where he was born on February 1st, 1977. But just a few months later, his family moved across the country to Roselle, New Jersey, a quiet little suburb where Ivey would spend his childhood. That's where the seeds of greatness were first planted. Phil Ivey learned poker at just 8 years old from his grandfather, quickly showing a gift for strategy and competition, not just in cards, but in games like chess and backgammon. As a teen, he worked at McDonald's, then found a telemarketing job where he spent breaks playing 5-card stud. His skills grew fast, and soon, home games weren't enough. Too young for casinos, he used a fake ID borrowed from a friend of his dad's and started playing in Atlantic City as Jerome Graham. He was there so often, players and staff called him No Home Jerome. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were times he missed the last bus home or couldn't even afford it. On more than one occasion, he slept under the boardwalk, all just to keep chasing his poker dream. He'd grind for 16 hours straight at the Taj Mahal, studying every hand he played, even the ones he won. It was a brutal but necessary part of building his bankroll. That telemarketing gig helped keep him afloat when things got rocky, but eventually the 2-hour commute was holding him back. So he made the leap, moved out of his parents' place, and got an apartment in Atlantic City. He was living and breathing poker, knowing everyone from the dealers to the floor managers. Word spread fast about this young guy who'd once slept under the boardwalk and was now making serious moves at the tables. In just a year, Jerome was playing in the biggest stud games in the city, sometimes for $75 to $150 a hand, and even up to $400 when high rollers were around. He quit his job and was now living entirely off poker, officially becoming a pro, even if his parents weren't exactly thrilled. Then came the moment of truth. About a year after moving to Atlantic City, he walked into the Taj Mahal casino and casually let it slip. It was his 21st birthday. For the first time, he could legally sit at the tables in New Jersey. He told the shift manager his real name was Phil, not Jerome. He headed west, to the Commerce Casino, just outside Los Angeles, a place known for high-stakes action and serious competition. That's where he first landed on the radar of 2 seasoned pros, Barry Greenstein and Daniel Negreanu. At first, both of them saw Ivey as a bit reckless, a fish, in poker terms, playing way too many hands and diving into pots without much caution. But even with all that wild energy, they saw something in him. Instead of writing him off, they took him under their wing, offering advice and mentorship. Ivey soaked it all in. Their guidance helped sharpen his instincts and tighten up his game, paving the way for his entry into the legendary Big Game in Las Vegas. Though Ivy was mostly known for crushing cash games, he decided to dip his toes into the tournament world in 2000. That April, he played his first recorded open event, a $540 limit hold'em tourney at the first annual Jack Binion World Poker Open in Tunica. Out of nearly 300 players, Ivy came out on top, walking away with just over $53,000. Not bad for a debut, but he wasn't done, not even close. That same year, he showed up at the 2000 World Series of Poker and made history. Ivy cashed in 3 events at the WSOP, but it was the $2,580 pot limit Omaha tournament that really put him on the map. He bulldozed through a field of 100 top-tier players and took home a staggering $195,000. More importantly, he earned his first WSOP bracelet. The final table wasn't just tough, it was legendary. Alongside Ivy were 3 future Poker Hall of Famers: himself, Phil Hellmuth, and Dave Devilfish Ulliott. And then there was the icon, Thomas Amarillo Slim Preston. Ivy went heads up against Preston, who pulled out all the stops to shake the young prodigy's focus. Preston was loud and sharp-tongued, constantly trying to throw Ivy off his game. But Ivy stayed calm, focused, and unfazed. He beat Preston soundly in what turned out to be Slim's final WSOP appearance. It felt like a symbolic moment, as if the old guard was handing the torch to the next era's king. At just 23 years old, Ivy had already built a reputation as a cold-blooded poker killer. What really set him apart, even back then, was his sheer presence at the table. Every great player has their thing, and for Ivy, it was intimidation. He was infamous for that deep, unblinking stare, one that could pierce right through a person's soul. It wasn't about showmanship. When Ivy locked eyes with an opponent, it meant his brain was going into overdrive. He was analyzing everything: past hands, bet patterns, body language, calculating every possible outcome. Everything. That level of focus, combined with raw talent and nerves of steel, made Phil Ivy one of the most feared players in the game. And once that became clear, the poker world knew. They weren't just watching a rising star, they were witnessing the rise of a legend. Before 2002, winning 3 bracelets in a single World Series of Poker was almost unheard of. Only 3 legends had ever done it: Walter Puggy Pearson in 1973, then Phil Hellmuth and Ted Forrest in 1993. But in 2002, Phil Ivy changed everything. He bagged 3 events that year: the $1,500 Limit 7-card stud for $132,000, the $2,500 stud high-low for $118,000, and the $2,000 limit shoe for $107,000. It was a jaw-dropping run that earned him the nickname the Phenom. In 2005, he took down his 5th bracelet in a $5,000 pot limit Omaha event for over $635,000. Just months later, he scored his first $1 million payday by winning the Monte Carlo Millions, banking a clean $1 million. Around this time, he also played one of poker's most iconic hands in a legendary bluff battle against Paul Jackson. But one of Ivy's most iconic moments came in 2006, when he was called in as the closer for The Corporation, a group of elite pros who had joined forces to take on billionaire banker and math whiz Andy Beal. By then, Beal had already dominated the game, leaving the team down $13.6 million. Enter Ivy. Over 3 days, he not only erased that loss, but walked away with $16.6 million in profit, forcing Beal to retreat from the game entirely. 2009 was another monster year. He won 2 more bracelets, one in No Limit 2-7 low ball and another in Omaha 7-card stud high-low, bringing his total to 7. He even made the main event final table, finishing 7th for $1.4 million. That same year, he became one of the faces of Team Full Tilt, diving into high-stakes online games, where 6-figure pots were the norm. He was a perfect fit for the site, especially with his love for all variants and nosebleed stakes. It was during this time that fans started calling him the Tiger Woods of poker. In 2010, Ivy grabbed his 8th bracelet by winning a $3,000 horse event, raking in another $329,000. But while bracelets and trophies stack up, what sets Ivy apart is his dominance in high-stakes cash games. From 2007 to 2011, Phil Ivey dominated online poker, winning 19.2 million ETIRs in cash games on Full Tilt Poker, while earning $920,000 monthly as a brand ambassador. At that point, life couldn't have looked better. He was winning big, respected across the poker world, and sitting comfortably at the top. But on April 15th, 2011, Black Friday, the US government shut down Full Tilt for illegal operations, wiping out Ivy's stake. Players discovered their funds were missing, sparking outrage. To show his solidarity, Ivy boycotted the 2011 WSOP and took legal action against Full Tilt, a move that helped prompt PokerStars to acquire the site and reimburse its players. When Full Tilt relaunched, Ivy returned as polarizing, but his success never matched his earlier dominance. In 2012, he bounced back in a big way at the Aussie Millions, crushing the $250,000 challenge and walking away with a cool $2 million and over $2 million in US dollars. It was another massive win. But later that same year, everything changed, one that would shake his career to its core. During a poker tournament in Australia, Phil Ivey met Chung Yin Kelly's son, a gambling insider with a shady past. She revealed a secret tactic to beat baccarat, edge sorting, exploiting tiny flaws on card backs to predict upcoming cards. To pull it off, they needed specific conditions, certain decks, a Mandarin-speaking dealer, and control over card orientation. After a successful $3 million test run in Australia, they took the scheme global, winning millions. At London's Crockford's Club, Ivy won £7.8 million, but the casino refused to pay, accusing him of cheating. Ivy sued, but courts ruled edge, sorting gave him an unfair advantage, even if it wasn't outright deception. In a parallel US case, Atlantic City's Borgata won a $9.6 million judgment against him for breach of contract. Later, Borgata even tried seizing his WSOP winnings, sparking a legal feud with fellow players over profit splits. The saga ended in a confidential settlement, leaving the poker world split. Was Ivy a genius or a cheat? After spending some time out of the spotlight, Phil Ivey returned to the game with a whole new fire. He spoke about feeling more connected to poker than ever, fully present, not caught up in the past or future. It wasn't just about the wins anymore. It was about the joy of playing. For Ivy, poker felt fresh again, almost like falling in love with the game all over. Fast forward to June 2021, and Ivy proved he was still a force to be reckoned with by dominating the $25,000 WPT Heads-Up Championship on Poker King. Then came the 2024 $10,000 limit 2-7 Triple Draw Championship, a true grind. With 139 players and a marathon final table that stretched into a rare fourth day, the event tested everyone's endurance. Ivy, though, rose to the occasion. Against the odds and down to just one big bet at one point, he pulled off a stunning comeback to win his 11th WSOP bracelet, ending a decade-long drought. This victory wasn't just another title, it was historic. It pushed him ahead of legends like Eric Seidel, Doyle Brunson, and Johnny Chan, who all sit with 10 bracelets, and placed him second only to Phil Hellmuth's record, 17. The 347 400,440 payday also took his total WSOP earnings past the $10 million mark. After the win, Ivey reflected on his journey. He admitted that while his life now includes family and priorities beyond poker, the passion is still alive. He said he still gets fired up for WSOP events. And that's what makes Phil Ivey such a legendary figure, feared and respected not just for his aggression or his uncanny reads, but because he's the rare kind of player who excels in every format, especially mixed games. In fact, all 11 of his bracelets came from non-hold'em events. Young players still look up to Ivey, and it's no surprise why. Whether it's on the felt, in high-stakes cash games, or risking millions at the baccarat tables, he's always chasing greatness. His path to the top wasn't easy, but he made it, building a career that's not just impressive, but nearly impossible to match, all by overcoming the odds and keeping his eyes locked on the prize.
But not every legend wins through control. Some fight their demons in public, rise, fall, and rise again, driven by pain, pride, and pure emotion. This is the turbulent journey of Mike, the Mouth, Matusoff.
Let me explain something to you. I'll rob you guys and rob you guys and rob you guys, and then when I finally pick up a hand, you guys are gonna stick it, I'm gonna get cold deck, because that's what my life of poker's about.
He was a loudmouth guy with a gambling habit, caught in a federal sting and going downhill fast. Most people thought he was done for, but instead of disappearing like so many others, he clawed his way back in a way no one saw coming. What happened next stunned the poker world and showed that sometimes the wildest legends rise from the darkest places. This is the insane true story of how a drug dealer went from prison to poker legend. Mike Matusoff, better known in the poker world as the Mouth, came up in Los Angeles, born April 30th, 1968. From early on, life wasn't exactly smooth. He was bullied, got into trouble, but always stood up for himself, even if it meant getting knocked down. Outside the chaos, Mike had dreams of becoming a mechanic, and even finished high school thinking that's the path he'd take. But life had other plans. After taking a job at a furniture store, a friend introduced him to poker at the Maxim Casino when he was just 18, and from that point on, everything changed. He got obsessed with video poker. At one point, he was even sneaking money from his mom just to keep playing. By the time he turned 20, Mike was working for his parents by day and losing every dime at the casino by night. Even when he won, he'd throw it all back into even riskier games. It was a losing cycle that led him straight into a gambling addiction program. Now, here's the twist. After just a few Gamblers Anonymous meetings, Mike didn't walk away from gambling. He doubled down. He got himself a job as a poker dealer at Sam's Town in Vegas. The job was perfect. He was getting paid to study the game and the players. Every shuffle, every hand, he was soaking it all in, sharpening his skills. He kept grinding, but nothing major happened until he met Steve Samaroff, a quiet, older poker pro. Soon, Mike was playing tournaments and cash games regularly, especially Omaha High-Low. He started making real money. In time, he built a solid rep in the high-stakes world, holding his own against rising stars like Todd Brunson and Jennifer Harmon. At one point, he was on fire, winning 81 out of 82 days, stacking up $250,000. His momentum was real, and people were starting to notice. His tournament journey started in 1996 with a $335 limit hold'em event in Vegas, where he placed third and took home about $7,500. Huge money for him at the time. Then in 1997, he made his first big splash at the World Series of Poker, finishing second in the $2,000 Omaha High-Low event. He lost that day to Scotty Nguyen. Funny how life works, because the two of them would meet again the very next year, but in a totally unexpected way. In 1998, both Mike and Scotty Nguyen were backed by the same guy, Neil. Now Scotty had already won around $65,000 during the series, but Neil refused to cover his entry into the main event. But then, Mike decided to stake Scotty by buying him into 4 separate satellite events. Scotty lost everyone. Scotty begged for one more shot. Mike covered a third. Scotty won the satellite and the main event. Mike pocketed $300,000. By the next year, Mike wasn't waiting on dreams or anyone else. He stepped up and took it into his own hands. That's when he captured his first WSOP bracelet, crushing the $3,500 no-limit hold'em event by beating Alex Bernay's heads up. He'd already raked in hundreds of thousands before that, but this was the one that made it official. In 2000, he jumped into a 540 PLO 8 event at Carnival Die Poker in Vegas and walked away with nearly $50,000. It became clear Mike wasn't just a one-game wonder. He was mastering all kinds of poker. Stud 8, PLO 8, no limit, hold'em mixed games. He could play it all. He was on fire, but not every run was smooth. Later that year, he busted out of a 7-card stud tourney at Binion's Horseshoe. Instead of the $129,000 top prize he felt he deserved, he settled for just under $10,000. Miserable about the loss, he was venting to his girlfriend, who also happened to be a stripper from Puerto Rico and had a little love for pills. Later that night at Club Rio, she told him to take a hit of ecstasy to calm his nerves. Mike was 32 at the time and had never touched a hard substance. He asked friends, braced for the worst, then felt amazing. That bad energy disappeared, and he danced the night away. By morning, his whole perspective shifted. He thought ecstasy was the greatest thing ever, and that kicked off a whole new chapter. Mike partied hard on drugs all weekend, then played poker midweek, but it caught up fast. Within a year, the drugs started messing with his game. He couldn't lock in, couldn't read players like he used to. His edge? Slipping bad. Then came the 2001 World Series of Poker, and he bombed. Not 1 cent. That's when the panic really hit. Then his girlfriend brought up speed, said it was big in poker circles for staying sharp. With 613 players in the 2001 WSOP main event, Mike figured, why not? Snorted his first line, and he was locked in, played out of his mind. He was picking up tells left and right, reading every little shift in behavior. His instincts were on fire. He made it all the way to the final table, but lost to Carlos Mortensen in the final. But by the time the world caught poker fever in the early 2000s, Mike was already a known name. The poker boom was in full swing. And just like Phil Hellmuth, Daniel Negreanu, and Phil Ivey, Mike was riding that wave and cashing in. But what made Mike different? While those other guys were building polished brands and loyal fan bases, Mike was doing the exact opposite. And that's how he earned the nickname The Mouth. He stirred the pot, snapped at opponents, and wore every emotion on his sleeve, whether he was winning or getting crushed. He'd fly off the handle at the table, yelling at players, calling them every name in the book: moron, idiot, donkey. If someone sucked out on him or made what he thought was a trash play and won, he exploded. It became so common that other players literally started calling it Mike's explosion. And the wildest part? These meltdowns usually happened when he was actually doing well in the tournament. Still, none of that seemed to bother Mike. He admitted he'd go broke all the time and just didn't care. His confidence in his poker game was so high, he believed someone would always stake him. In his mind, being a great poker player meant he'd never truly be out of the game. But after winning his second World Series of Poker bracelet in 2002, things started to spiral. His judgment started slipping, and he found himself rolling with the wrong crowd. Mike had already been deep in the Vegas party scene, but one wild night at a Pimps and Hoes themed party took things to a whole new level. He dropped $5 grand on a booth at the Palms and was handing out substances like it was candy. That's when he met Mike Fento, a smooth talker who claimed to have ties to a Chicago crime family. Fento slid into Mike's life fast. Dinners, movies, poker convos. But underneath all that charm, it was all a setup. Fento claimed he was in town to open a strip club and needed help laundering money. Mike brushed it off but didn't back away when it came to substances. He helped Fento score all kinds, thinking it was just for friends. But Fento barely paid him and Mike's gut kept sending warnings. Still, he stayed involved, out of fear and loyalty. Everything blew up when an old dealer called, screaming that Fento was a DEA snitch. At first, Mike didn't believe it until the dealer's brother-in-law, an actual DEA agent, confirmed the surveillance. Then came the takedown. On September 25, 2003, cops stormed Mike's house and arrested him on drug trafficking charges. He thought it was a mistake, but the feds were serious. They gave him a choice: flip and help them take down a nightclub owner, or face years behind bars. Mike refused. He wasn't a rat. and he feared the consequences. He hired top lawyer David Chesnoff and dropped $200,000 on his defense. Chesnoff knew it was bad, entrapment was a stretch, and federal prison was looming. Eventually, he worked out a deal: 6 months in county jail instead of a decade in federal lockup. The good news for Mike was that all these delays in the legal process allowed him to play in the 2004 World Series of Poker before he had to serve his time. But it didn't take long for reality to hit hard. Luckily, right before doing his time, he'd won $250,000 in a tournament. Trying to be smart, he stashed $50,000 to cover bills while he was locked up. The other $200,000? He gave it to a buddy to bet on sports. Huge mistake. Every dime was gone. By the time he got out, he was basically broke, but his longtime poker friend Phil Hellmuth stepped in with a loan to help him get back on his feet. Matusow didn't just recover, he exploded back into the game. In no time, his bankroll ballooned to $750,000. He bought a BMW, paid off a mountain of debt, and entered the 2005 World Series of Poker with a whole new attitude. That year, he made magic. He finished 9th at the main event. But the real moment was winning the Tournament of Champions, trash-talking Hellmuth all the way. That win on top of the main event run marked a major comeback and shot him right back into the spotlight. As part of Team Full Tilt Poker, Mike was back in prime form. He was sharing the stage with legends Phil Ivey, Tom Dwan, Chris Ferguson. Back then, Matusow was one of the biggest names in the game. Then came April 15th, 2011, Black Friday. The day online poker got rocked to its core. Full Tilt Poker was shut down in the US, and Mike said it ruined his life. After the shutdown, players started flooding him with angry messages saying he owed Full Tilt money they thought should have gone back to the players, locked out of their accounts. He denied all of it. Said he lost everything when Full Tilt collapsed, his sponsorship, his income, even the millions sitting in his player account. People started counting him out, calling him washed. But in 2013, Mike Matusow came back swinging, stronger than ever. In early 2013, Mike Matusow found himself in a dark place. Broke, depressed, and stuck in bed after another brutal NFL season left his pockets empty. But then he got wind that the NBC National Heads Up Poker Championship was coming back. One problem, he hadn't been invited. That silence hit harder than ever. Mike called Moria Scandani, got the green light, and it flipped a switch. He prepared like never before, determined to show the world he still had it. Even after not playing Heads Up No Limit for 2 years, he trained hard and came in ready. He tore through legends: Barry Greenstein, Mike Mizrachi, Johnny Hennigan, Victor Bloom, and Scott Siver. Each win fueled him more. Then came the final against Phil Hellmuth. First match, Mike dominated. Second, Phil adjusted. But when it mattered most, Mike played it smart. On the final hand, holding ace-jack of diamonds against Phil's ace-3, he paused, thought it through, and made the call. The flop came 3-3-10 with 2 diamonds. When the diamond hit the river, the room exploded. That win got him the NBC title and a $750,000 payday. But he wasn't finished. That same year, he grabbed his 4th WSOP bracelet in his favorite game, $5,000 7-card stud, high-low split 8 or better, taking down Matthew Ashton heads up. That win wasn't just about the cash. It was a statement. After all the losses, the pain, and people counting him out, Mike never stopped betting on himself. Loud, raw, and real. He was one of the last of a dying breed. But just as things were looking up, tragedy hit. In 2014, Mike hit one of the lowest points of his life. He was in the middle of a poker game when the chair he was sitting on suddenly gave out, and boom, he suffered a thoracic spinal contusion. Serious back injury, he couldn't walk, and was one step away from being paralyzed. Just like that, he had to step away from poker, and in this game, if you're not playing, you're not earning. He lost his whole bankroll, even lost his house. That was rock bottom. He ended up sitting out the entire 2015 season. But in 2016, the mouth made his return. His bankroll was way smaller, but his heart was still in it. He came back swinging, determined to climb his way back into poker's spotlight. And he's been there, year after year. Mike's a straight-up regular at every World Series of Poker going way back. Even when he's not making deep runs, he's out there grinding. In 2023, he came real close to snagging his 5th bracelet, finishing 2nd in the 1,500 7-card stud high-low. So close, just missed it. But despite everything he's accomplished, Matusow still hasn't been inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame. He's been nominated plenty of times, but he believes the whole thing is driven more by politics than poker skill. And Mike, he's always spoken his mind, never played the politics game, and that's probably held him back. Still, there's no denying it. Mike Matusow is one of the best to ever do it.
From chaos to charisma, the next player didn't just win the biggest prize in poker history, he talked his way to it. A Hollywood dealmaker who bluffed the world and paid the price for fame. This is the story of Jamie Gold.
Well, you're a TV producer, Jamie. Could you have scripted this any better?
No, it was amazing.
It's not often you find someone who can dominate two completely different worlds, Hollywood's talent machine and poker's high-stakes arena. But he pulled it off. In Hollywood, he had an eye for spotting stars before they blew up. At the poker table, he was a master manipulator, outplaying opponents to win the richest tournament ever. The twist? Those very same skills that made him unstoppable eventually backfired, and his name went from respected to despised. So how did a man who once held power in both Hollywood and poker become known as the most hated recruiter? This is the story of the TV producer who became the most hated celebrity recruiter. Jamie Gold's story starts in Missouri, where he grew up before moving to Manhattan with his mom. When she remarried Dr. Robert Gold, Jamie took his stepfather's last name, and that name would eventually become famous in the poker world. He wasn't destined for cards right away, though. Gold went the academic route first, earning his bachelor's degree from the University of Albany before heading west to UCLA to study entertainment law. By the time most people are still figuring out what to do with their lives, Gold was already a talent agent under 21, managing rising stars who would go on to become household names, people like James Gandolfini, Lucy Liu, Jimmy Fallon, and Felicity Huffman. Poker didn't really hit his radar until 1998, when he saw Rounders. Watching Matt Damon play a reformed gambler who dives back into high-stakes poker lit a fire in him. From that point on, Gold dedicated hours every week to the game, 30, sometimes more, grinding at card clubs in Los Angeles, casinos in Vegas, and tournaments wherever he could find them. He had financial backers to share the winnings with, but what mattered most was the experience. Now, cards weren't entirely foreign to him. His mom loved poker, and his grandfather was a master of gin rummy, so games had always been around. But the real turning point came from his day job in Hollywood. While working on a TV show, he crossed paths with none other than poker legend Johnny Chan. The timing couldn't have been better. Chan had just appeared in Rounders. Chris Moneymaker had shocked the world with his 2003 WSOP win, and the poker boom was underway. The two struck a deal. Gold would help Chan with entertainment projects, and Chan would mold him into a real poker player. Chan later described Gold as extremely smart, a guy who wasn't afraid to play more hands than most, and who had a sharp instinct for reading opponents. That mentorship changed everything. The TV show idea fizzled, but the poker lessons? They paid off big time. Bodog.net picked Gold up as one of their sponsored Hollywood players, and soon he was racking up wins across Los Angeles. By April 2005, he had his first major tournament victory at the Bicycle Casino, pocketing $54,225. And then came 2006. After a few more strong finishes, Gold went on an insane run, one that turned him from just another player into a poker legend.
I'm all in.
Nassif pushes all in.
I'm sorry, man.
And Gold, of course, will make the call.
Jamie Gold again. He's a TV producer, and again, it just feels like these hands are scripted for him.
You see, poker in 2006 wasn't just a game, it was a spectacle. Back then, the World Series of Poker main event wasn't only about the cards, it was about the personalities. The champions were celebrities, and the way they played was more instinct than analytics. Reading opponents, talking at the table, pulling off gutsy bluffs. That's what separated the pros from the amateurs. And in that environment, nobody put on a better show than Jamie Gold.
You done? You ready to go home? What are you feeling? You had enough?
That year's main event pulled in a staggering 8,773 players, still the largest field in history. For comparison, last year's nearly broke the record with 8,569 entries, but still fell short. And walking into that sea of hopefuls was Gold, a complete unknown to most of the poker world. Before then, his biggest score was a modest $54,000 win in a small LA tournament. Hardly the resume of a future world champ. But for one unforgettable week, he played the role of a lifetime, mixing Hollywood theatrics with razor-sharp table talk. Gold's style was unorthodox. He didn't just bluff, he advertised it.
I'll show you. I've been showing a lot of bluffs. I don't mind showing.
He'd flash cards, chatter nonstop, and lure opponents into exactly the decision he wanted. When he had a hand, he got called. When he didn't, people folded. That balance is the holy grail of poker, and in 2006, Gold made it look effortless.
I just trapped him too. I'm playing well, right?
You're playing fantastic.
By the time he got to the final table, Gold was sitting on a mountain of chips, 51.1 million. To put that in perspective, the next closest stack belonged to Alan Cunningham, the crowd favorite and probably the best player left in the field, and he only had 13.6 million. That's not just a lead, it's a landslide, and it only got more ridiculous. When it came down to heads up, Gold had ballooned his stack to 79 million, while poor Paul Wasicka was hanging on with just 11.2 million. At that point, it didn't look like a poker match anymore. It looked like one of those one-sided pay-per-view fights where you already know who's getting knocked out. Still, Wasicka wasn't about to back down. Before cards were even dealt, he looked Gold straight in the eye and promised he wouldn't go quietly. He even told ESPN that he could beat Gold even if I had 10% of his chips to 90. It was a bold claim, but as soon as the first few hands played out, the whole thing started to feel like Peter McNeely stepping into the ring against Mike Tyson, brave, confident, and completely outgunned. The final hand summed up the entire tournament. Wasicka picked up pocket tens, a strong hand heads up, and opened the pot. Gold, holding Queen 9, came along for the ride. The flop fell Queen 8-5, giving Gold top pair. Wasicka fired out a bet, but Gold instantly shoved his massive stack into the middle.
All in.
And Gold's gonna push!
Then came the famous speech play. Gold leaned in and started talking, his words working their usual magic.
You don't have a queen, do you?
Reminding him that he couldn't take back the all-in, even if he wanted to.
I'm already all in. You can say whatever. You can't change my action.
If you had a queen, you'd call. Gold teased. No queen?
You don't have a queen, do you?
And this could be it for Paul Wasicka.
Wasicka admitted he didn't. Gold, grinning ear to ear, declared he had him beat.
I guess if you did, you'd call, so I got this one.
Jamie again, trying to turn the screws and mess with the mind.
After everything Gold had pulled during the tournament, convincing players to fold winners, trapping them with chatter, it got in Wasicka's head. He finally said, almost with a laugh, "All right, you talked me into it," and tossed in the call. Gold shot up from his chair in celebration.
All right, you talked me into it.
You call?
Here we go!
Yes!
Wasicka calls all
This is
in!
it, baby! Yeah! Yeah!
He knew the moment that pot was over, history was his. The turn and river brought harmless cards, ace and 4, and just like that, Jamie Gold was the 2006 World Series of Poker main event champion, pocketing an incredible $12 million payday.
It helped bring Jamie Gold his own title and $12 million.
The biggest in tournament history at the time. Afterward, Gold explained exactly what happened. He said he sensed weakness, shoved with top pair, and then leaned into his best weapon, his words. He admitted he had gone into full performance mode and actually talked Wasicka into calling with the worst of it. That single moment sealed the championship. The prize money was huge, but that's not what made Gold's win unforgettable. It was the way he did it, non-stop table talk and mind games so intense they actually changed the rules of poker. His tactics were so controversial that officials introduced what's now called the Jamie Gold rule. No more talking about your hand while the cards are still live. It was the only way to level the playing field. But before long, poker's biggest showman found himself caught in a drama he couldn't talk his way out of. After just 3 days of unwinding, Jamie Gold decided to extend his vacation. At first, it was because of rumors, reports of strangers lurking around his neighborhood. But soon, the gossip spread beyond the streets. Newspapers and cable shows picked up on chatter from the internet, accusing him of lying about his past. The allegations weren't exactly flattering. On his resume, Gold listed Hollywood stars like Lucy Liu and Kristen Davis as former clients. The problem? Their representatives clarified that while Gold did work at the same agency, he wasn't their main agent. Still, plenty of colleagues came to his defense. Mark Armstrong, who once partnered with Gold and later represented James Gandolfini, praised him for having a sharp eye for talent and an aggressive drive to develop stars. But while some accusations could be brushed off, others came in the form of serious lawsuits. The first came from Francis Delavecchia, a consultant with Riptown Media. he claimed he helped Gold land a sponsorship deal with Bodog to cover his main event buy-in exchange for 1% of Gold's winnings. According to Della Vecchia, he introduced Gold to Bodog because of his Hollywood ties and asked him to help secure celebrities for the brand's poker team. The end result was a roster that included Dean Cain, Makey Pfeiffer, DJ AM, and Brad Garrett. Not exactly A-list, but enough for Bodog to cut a deal. In return, Della Vecchia claimed Gold promised him a slice of the prize money. Then came an even bigger lawsuit from Crispin Laser. He said that just weeks before the main event, he and Gold struck a deal. Laser would line up celebrities to wear Bodog gear at the tournament, and in exchange, they'd split any winnings 50-50. Laser delivered, bringing in Matthew Lillard and Dax Shepard. Bodog later admitted Gold helped attract celebrity players, but denied knowing about any private arrangement. The twist came when Laser produced a voicemail Gold left on August 10th, the very day of the final table. In it, Gold promised that Laser would get half after taxes and begged him not to stress over the money. But when Gold won the $12 million prize, Laser claimed he refused to tell casino staff at the Rio to cut him in. According to Harrah's, Gold could have designated a payout right at the cage, ensuring each party handled their own taxes. Instead, he left the money untouched, making him the only winner out of 873 players that year to walk away without claiming his prize. Gold later explained he was waiting for tax advisors and that he planned to use much of the money to support his father, who had Lou Gehrig's disease. Eventually, officials confirmed he collected about $5.9 million, which was placed in a trust. The lawsuits dragged on, but in the end, Gold and Laser quietly settled for an undisclosed amount. Gold himself admitted later that the legal drama wasn't the part he regretted most. Instead, he looked back on some questionable antics during the tournament, like flashing cards to opponents and tipping off a friend about his hand. He chalked it up to being caught in the excitement of the moment, but admitted it was wrong and promised not to repeat it. Despite the controversies, Gold remained a recognizable face in the poker world. He appeared on major poker shows like Poker After Dark and High Stakes Poker, though his results in high-stakes games were underwhelming compared to his legendary main event run. In 2013, his championship bracelet even went up for auction, fetching just over $65,000, raising eyebrows about whether he really needed the money. Still, Gold wasn't finished. In 2016, he grabbed a strong second-place finish in a WSOP circuit event, earning nearly $140,000. In 2019, he returned to televised poker with appearances on Poker After Dark and live at the Bike. Most recently, in 2023, he cashed for over $23,000 at the Poker Stars Summer Series in Philadelphia, proving he's still grinding the game. Love him or not, Jamie Gold's story is unforgettable. In just 14 days, he won $12 million, the kind of money that took Tiger Woods over 3 years to earn, Kobe Bryant 4, and Roger Federer 6. That meteoric rise, paired with the chaos that followed, makes him one of the most fascinating figures in poker history. The only question left is how people choose to remember him, as the master of the bluff, the man who sparked controversy, or simply as one of poker's most unique champions. But for all the mind games and manipulation poker has seen, nothing prepared the world for what came next. A man whose winning streak defied math, logic, and maybe even morality. This is the rise and fall of Mike Postle. For years, he was just another face in the crowd, another grinder trying to make it. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. He couldn't seem to lose. Hand after hand, session after session, his moves made no sense, but somehow always worked. Fans started calling him things like the Apostle and even the Devil. But behind the scenes, whispers turned into doubts. Was he really that good? Or was something else at play? This is the story of the man who tore the poker world apart. Mike Postle was born on December 26, 1976, in northern Wisconsin. Growing up with 5 siblings, games were never just for fun. Money was always on the line. Even Monopoly meant real cash. By the time he turned 18, he took a job at a local Indian casino, first making change, then dealing cards. That's when poker became his obsession. Chasing bigger games, he moved to Tunica, Mississippi in the early 2000s, one of the country's poker hotbeds. There, Postle sharpened his instincts and realized playing was far more profitable than dealing. By the mid-2000s, he was part of the Sacramento poker scene, solid enough to survive, but far from remarkable until 2018. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. That summer, at Stone's Gambling Hall, Postal went on a jaw-dropping winning streak. The guy who'd always flown under the radar was suddenly dominating live-stream Texas Hold'em games, raking in thousands and outplaying seasoned pros like it was nothing. Stone's wasn't Vegas, but its live stream drew in big names. And whenever Postal played, he was treated like a star, nicknamed Apostle or the Devil, with halos and horns in the graphics. The hometown grinder quickly became a cult figure. For months, the story never changed. Postal played as if he could see through the cards. To fans, it looked magical. To pros, nearly impossible. What was his trick? Enter Veronica Brill. By day, a medical software pro. By night, a Stones player and live stream commentator. She'd lost to Postal, but instead of shrugging it off, she started asking the questions nobody else dared. By early 2019, Brill was convinced something was off. Postal's decisions didn't just defy odds, they defied GTO itself, the game's mathematical blueprint. Even the best pros, armed with hours of study, still make mistakes. But Postal, he played like luck. And error didn't exist. Yet Postal's play looked almost too perfect, like he was running the same winning script over and over. He'd make these bizarre calls, fold in spots that made no sense, and still always walk away on top. To Brill, the only thing that added up was that Postal had access to more information than anyone else sitting at that table. In March 2019, she confronted Stones' director, Justin Caraitis, about Postal accessing RFID data used for the livestream. He dismissed her. Stones is airtight. Postal's just brilliant, and told the same to other players. But Brill wasn't alone in her doubts. Other pros like Casey Mills and Jake Rosensteel voiced their own concerns, warning management that something about Postal's run felt impossible. Each time, they got the same response. Stones was secure, Postal was just gifted, and anyone who questioned it didn't understand greatness when they saw it. That summer, rumors swirled. Then came September 21st, 2019. Postal returned to Stones, glowing under the Twitch lights, his chip stack towering. Pros had flown in with tens of thousands in cash, but all eyes were on him. Midway through the session, he went up against Marley Cordero, a Las Vegas pro with a big online following. Postal was dealt Queen Jack. The flop came down 8-9 Jack, giving him top pair and a straight draw, exactly the kind of hand pros live for. Cordero fired out a $600 bet, and everyone watching expected Postal to raise or at least call. Instead, he sat frozen in his chair, hand on his shoulder, lips pursed in thought. Then, against all logic, he folded. The commentators reacted in completely different ways. Justin Kelly, in the booth, gushed about Postal's brilliance, calling him a freak of nature. But Brill wasn't buying it. Shaking her head, she muttered under her breath that it didn't make sense, that it was like Postal already knew what Cordero was holding. And sure enough, she had the nuts. A queen-high straight that gave her a 96% chance of winning the hand. Driving home that night, Brill couldn't shake the moment. She had finally said out loud what she'd been thinking for months, and now there was no going back. Postal wasn't just a friend anymore. He was a problem she couldn't ignore. A week later, on September 28th, she went public with an 18-minute Twitter video exposing Postal's most suspicious plays. She admitted uncertainty, but suggested cheating was likely, citing his sky-high VIPP, impossible folds, and even a possible hidden device. The poker world exploded. Postal's phone rang nonstop. Furious, he denied everything, firing angry texts at Brill while boasting about crushing pros and making millions online. But his wrath was only the start. Now the entire poker community was coming for her. As the poker world was lining up to tear Brill apart on October 1st, one of the game's biggest names stepped in to back her. Joey Ingram, a respected player and host of the Poker Life podcast, had taken an interest in the video Brill put together showing all of Mike Postal's suspicious hands. At first, he didn't buy into it, but curiosity got the better of him, so he pulled up an old game from Stone's YouTube channel. That quick peek turned into a full-blown rabbit hole. The more he watched, the crazier it looked. Postal wasn't just running hot, he was winning in ways that flat out made no sense. By the time Ingram wrapped up his first deep dive, he was convinced something was seriously wrong. And at about 4 a.m. that same day, he went live. What started as one stream quickly snowballed into must-see TV, part poker breakdown, part detective series, and the entire community couldn't look away. On October 3rd, ESPN's Scott Van Pelt dedicated 3.5 minutes on SportsCenter to the story. He asked the question on everyone's mind: if Postal was truly this good, why was he playing in low-stakes games at Stones instead of crushing the high roller tables in Las Vegas? Under pressure, Postal tried to fight back. On October 4th, he appeared on Mike the Mouth Matusau's podcast, but instead of clearing his name, he rambled. He insisted that jealous players were targeting him and claimed his strategy was creative and diabolical, something no book could explain. His vague answers only made things worse, and soon strangers were showing up at his home, threatening him and terrifying his young daughter. As October rolled on, the central question hung in the air: how was he pulling this off? That's when Andrew Milner, the Australian inventor of the RFID poker table, stepped in. Milner ruled out the idea of Postal hacking into the encrypted signal, but floated two other possibilities: a hidden camera in the broadcast room, or more likely, an inside job. Security at Stone's control room was notoriously loose, with people coming and going freely, even bringing in masseuses while games were being streamed. By October 8th, things had blown up into a $30 million federal lawsuit. Veronica Brill, along with 87 other players, accused Postal, Stones, and tournament director Justin Corradis of fraud and negligence. Their lawyer, Mac Verstandig, didn't sugarcoat it. Postal's win rate wasn't just impressive, it was flat out unheard of in poker history. The lawsuit floated a few possible methods: maybe a phone hidden under the table, maybe something in his hat, or even an insider feeding him information from the broadcast booth. But then, on June 4th, 2020, the case took a stunning twist. A federal judge dismissed it, ruling that under California law, poker players can't sue to recover gambling losses. Just like that, Postal was off the hook. Then, a few months after the first case got tossed out, things took another wild turn. About 60 of the players who had sued decided to settle with Stone's Gambling Hall and Justin Corradis. That deal must have lit a fire under Mike Postal, because not long after, he came back swinging with a monster $360 million lawsuit of his own. And he wasn't just aiming at the casino this time. He went after some of the biggest names in poker. Even ESPN got pulled into it, along with Veronica Brill, the very person who sparked the whole thing by calling him out. But as the case dragged on, Postal's own lawyer bailed, telling the court he couldn't even find his client. Brill and poker pro Todd Whittles fired back with anti-slap motions, a California law designed to protect people from frivolous lawsuits meant to intimidate them. Postal, now on his own, asked for delay after delay, claiming he was looking for new representation. Eventually, he tried to dismiss his own lawsuit altogether, but the anti-slap motion stuck. In the end, Brill and Whittles won, with the court ordering Postal to pay their legal fees. After that, Postal vanished. For years, it was like he'd been erased from the poker world, completely off the grid. But then, out of nowhere in January 2023, he popped back up in Biloxi, Mississippi, entering the $1 Million Heater poker series at the Beau Rivage. Only this time, he wasn't Mike Postal. He signed up under the name Michael Lawrence. Players said he tried to keep a low profile with a whole disguise: fake nose, hoodie pulled tight, and later even a medical mask when he made the final table. But the cover-up didn't stop him from making a run. Postal ended up finishing 7th, pocketing $32,703. News of Postal's return spread like wildfire. Many in the poker world were furious that he was allowed to play at all, especially since he still owed Brill and Whittles over $25,000 in legal fees. Brill even scrambled to see if there was a way to claim some of his winnings in Mississippi, but it was too late to act. Whether Postal stages a comeback is unclear. Legally, he can play. He was never convicted, but in poker, reputation is everything, and his is scarred. What truly happened at Stones may never be known, but one thing's certain: mention Mike Postal, and opinions split, either the unluckiest accused man in poker or its boldest cheat. From fearless prodigies to fallen icons, these stories remind us that poker isn't just about cards. it's about character. Genius, greed, redemption, and deception, all battling across the same felt, because in poker, the line between legend and controversy is only one hand away. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more untold stories from the world of poker, where legends are made and sometimes destroyed.